This podcast is for entertainment, education, and inspirational purposes only. Nothing in this podcast is diagnostic or direct medical advice and does not establish a practitioner-patient relationship. Seek care from a highly trained medical provider for your healthcare concerns. Yinspired is dedicated to all the grandmothers, aunties, and mothers whose voices weren't heard or listened to. Created for the daughters. Aloha and welcome back to Yinspired, a podcast celebrating different perspectives in Chinese medicine and integrative medicine. Here, we have casual conversations with everyday practitioners, patients, and students exploring the messy truths of medicine, healing, the taboo, and life. I'm your host, Dr. Haunani Chong-Drake, a clinical doctor of acupuncture and Chinese medicine, a cultural practitioner and steward, mom, dog mama, and military spouse. Aloha, everyone. I am very excited to introduce today's guest to the pod, Josh Green. Welcome, welcome, welcome. This has been quite the journey to get you on Yinspired.
It's been a while.
And I'm so grateful for your willingness, your steadfastness, and your flexibility. So thank you. I'm so happy to see you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You and I go way back, and I'm sure we will get into that story. And I will share your professional bio on the show notes. But for the listeners who don't know you, just introduce yourself. Name, where you're at, what you're doing these days.
All right. Yeah, my name is Joshua Green. I am a acupuncturist, Chinese medicine practitioner, Qigong practitioner. I'm located out here in the Pacific Northwest, Kitsap County. Have a clinical practice in Poulsbo, Washington, called Sacred Root Medicine, and have been doing that for been in practice for 15 years, some give or take. And I love what I do. So I'm excited to be here, and thanks for having me.
Yeah. So listeners, Josh was the very first person I ever met when I stepped into this Chinese medicine acupuncture world. Back in the day, student orientation, San Diego, Pacific College, 2005?
20 plus years ago.
Over 20 years. And I think it was at a student, at one of the orientation breaks, we were at the same billboard, and it was kind of like, hey. And that was it. Like, that's all that needed to happen. And the rest is history. You have been a soul brother, a confidant.
Hello.
So here we are. Through all these
years.
Yeah.
It's been quite a journey. And I remember we, after it was like, hey, I know you. Hey, it's like we went to the beach and chilled out and had great conversation. And and then kind of from there, like a tribe grew. And I learned so much, and those were really pivotal and valuable times in my life, and played a very big role in that. Continue to do so.
Would you consider that a soul recognition? That's the term I would use. Like, there was something going on in the ethers. It wasn't this hello. It wasn't this human. It was just this. It's you again in a different body. What's up?
Definitely felt that way. It was like, hey, something is familiar, and I think everything happens for a reason, like everybody that comes in our life at certain times, you can call it a cellular contract or just however you want to look at it. But I don't think there's really anything, such thing as coincidence. So I'm the type of person, when people do come into my life, it's like, okay, let me say hello, let me get to know you. And there's a reason and there's lessons within those interactions, whether they're, positive or what we deem as negative, so there's learning from it all.
For sure. And I've learned so much from you and the crazy shit we would get into back when we were younger and didn't have families.
It was great. I mean, that was a time of exploration and looking at other modalities, not just Chinese medicine, but the whole energetic arts and, alchemical arts and what that was. And, and just seeing the development and the kind of the maturation and the growth over this period of time has been amazing. And sometimes it's wild, because it's like sometimes I'll just pat myself on the back and say, thank you, old Josh, for doing those things. Thank you for making those decisions or putting yourself in an uncomfortable position, because the amount of growth and where you are today has been pivotal in that one decision.
That's a good reminder for all of us too, is to just kind of stop and reflect on where we've come from
Yeah.
and to recognize that journey. Because once you're in it, I mean, that ball gets rolling and it starts rolling fast. And it's sometimes hard to just stop and say, whoa,
Yeah.
what has been building, what has been happening and shifting. Well, I would
Yeah.
also pat you on your back because I am very,
Thanks.
not that you need my approval or
No, no.
like my pride at all, but it is so fun. You know, I love you and I love being your friend and to see all the paths you've taken. So let's talk about that. How do you get into acupuncture or Chinese medicine? Growing up, what was your relationship with medicine, spirituality, or other forms of medicine growing up? And how did that inform where you are today?
Yeah. So I would say I was definitely a part of the system. I went to the Western establishment in a lot of respects. So I got introduced to Chinese medicine. So I played sports. I was a basketball player and played at a relatively high level. I had the opportunity to play in college. I was introduced to it through through basketball, through injury. And the first time I saw it, a kid had sprained his ankle, and there was an acupuncturist there at the camp. And he's over there kind of hobbling off, and I see this guy put something in his wrist, and you can see the kid's ankle start to kind of get a little more mobility. And I'm like, what the hell is that? So while we're like supposed to be focusing on like, what's going on, I'll keep looking over to the side, like, what's going on over there? And so, long story short is our team was pretty good in the state of Washington. So he would come and work on us. And so I would end up going to see him outside of kind of the team setting. And I found that when I would go see him, as a young man, navigating this world and, questions and things of that nature, there were things that were illuminated within me where I was like, what is this? Because from a emotional, from a spiritual standpoint, there was something that was like magical at that time. And after, getting into Chinese medicine, and there it's I love Chinese medicine because it's everything's documented. There's theory. You can explain things through yin and yang, through the Tao, through all of these things. So there's a reason why. So with that being said, I would go see him, and I kind of had an interest, but I didn't necessarily have the confidence because I was like, I just play basketball, but this is really intriguing. So I ended up going to college, playing basketball, had bunch of injuries, did some overseas studying in Southeast Asia. And once I graduated from college, I was like, I'm really interested in that Chinese medicine. So I went back to Southeast Asia, did a bunch of meditation out there, did some Tai Chi, some folks out there, and came back, and it was just like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And the light switched over there, and it was like, this is, for me, it's like get free or die trying type of thing. So I have to be as authentic to myself as I can, and I have to kind of listen to that, because if I don't, then not only do I suffer, but everybody else suffers as well, right? Like, you're the best friend you'll ever have, and we have to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves first and foremost, because we're shining that light out, and I think people want to see the brightest versions of you know of me. So that's where
We
we
do.
are now.
I know. And I love that. Would you say get free or die trying?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Sounds like New Hampshire state motto, but
Is that the New Hampshire statement? I think that is actually.
something like that.
I think
Something
it
like
is.
that.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, that also speaks to this spiritual side of this journey you've been on as well. That I know
yeah.
that we've been, Chinese medicine is a medicine. It's a complete form of medicine that you've been
Yep.
studying, but you also take it to heart. You practice it. It's become a
Yeah,
part of who you are and what's important. Like,
yeah.
what do you mean get free or die trying? Like
So yeah, so when I started, so when we were at PCOM, Pacific College of Oriental Medicine, I don't know what it's called now, Pacific University.
Pacific, yeah, Pacific
You could
College of
what?
Health Sciences.
Okay, all right. All these schools changed their name. So when I got there, it was like, for me, I had to. There was such growth that happened inside of me, because it was like you come in and you see all these people that are doing martial arts and have a history within the kind of the East Asian or the Asian kind of healing arts in some form or fashion. And for me, I had to find some healing, some reconciliation, confidence, a lot of things inside to say, I belong here. This is my path. This is where I am. And so I just put my head down and studied and memorized. And there came a point where I was like, man, I can memorize anything you tell me to memorize. Like, this is ridiculous. I want the stuff in between the lines, right? And so with nothing with TCM, but it just didn't. Um, it wasn't getting to the essence of what I was looking for, from a spiritual standpoint, emotional spiritual standpoint. So I ended up transferring out of there after a year and a half, I believe, and I ended up going to National College of Natural Medicine, or the Classical Chinese Medicine program there, which I know the school changed their name, and they're National University of Natural Medicine now. And they had a classical Chinese medicine that brought in a lot more phenomenology, symbology, metaphor, and so that's where I ended up completing my studies. And that was an amazing experience, because everybody has a different mode of seeing. Some people say, "Oh, I hear what you're saying," or they can see things like through their mind's eye, right? So for me, it just connected all the dots, having got the foundation of TCM, Chinese medicine theory, at PCOM, and then going here, it just blew my world open in a lot of respects.
As I've been texting and talking to you on the phone, I'm going through that now, like 20 years later, or 15 years later. I
Yeah,
would say it started about 5 years ago, where the continuing education courses and instructors that I'm choosing to focus
yeah,
all come from that classical Chinese medicine background.
yep,
And it has been, like you said, just game changing, life changing,
yeah,
to see this other side. To me, it feels like the soul piece that I thought we were gonna get when we met in
yeah,
San Diego at Pacific College. I came into school with a huge expectation
yep,
that,
yep,
because this is a holistic medicine, that soul or that spiritual piece of the medicine was gonna be part of our curriculum, and so it felt soulless,
yeah,
and I
yep,
really railed against that. You and I talked about this all the time. This is why I think why we came together, is because after we would study what we had to pass an exam, our conversations were about
yeah, yeah,
all the other things that weren't being talked about, or the lines that we skipped in a translation, or
yep,
entire chapters.
yep, yeah,
So I try not to live jealously. Everyone has their own path and their own timing,
yeah,
but it was so thrilling to me when I had that realization. Remember, I called you and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is what you got. This was it. This is what we were talking about all along."
yeah. Yeah. And like, granted, like, an institution is an institution, right? So we have to take it,
Yeah.
like, so there's still things that they have to abide by, and still curriculum that they have to teach. And so, yes, like, there was like a lot of great things, and then there's the bureaucracy. With that being said, I still felt like there was still something that was kind of that I was still striving to get to, like, there I was still working. And when I completed my studies there, then I started doing medical qigong, and I started going to Southern California for week-long intensive studying medical qigong. And that's when things really started to click and make sense, as it was just hours of intensive qigong. We're getting into Taoism theory, really cultivating chi, or energy, and being able to understand the power of the science of the mind, the power of your mind, and how thought, intention, breath, posture is really like the essence of it all.
It sounds like
Yeah.
you took the theory part, the things we learned, and then you actually began to have embodied experiences of those theories.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and I think that's, like, we have so many conversations with people on a daily basis that they understand the theory, they understand their patterns, they understand themselves, but we still continue to do the same things, and the same, like, things that don't necessarily serve us. And And so we're not embodying, it's not integrating at a cellular level to create that change that we want, right? Or that we are hoping to achieve. So, and that takes more work and more effort and for me, I feel like in a lot of respects, it does take a body-based practice rooted in mindfulness in a lot of respects, or like putting our mind within our tissues within our body. That's body-based practice. So like when you talk about yoga, for example, like, it's comprehensive, but most people in the West are just about asana. And for me, I'm like, from a qigong standpoint, what we're doing is we're stretching our fascial system. We're opening up the channels to allow for more breath, for more inspiration, for more divine divinity, or whatever you want to call it, to flow into us. So we have a greater ability of clarity, and we know the direction in which we want to move in this world, and it's less muddled. Right. So yeah, that's kind of how I look at it, and that's how I approach it with qigong practice.
You also use the word belonging. You said get free or die. And on this path, you had to build confidence and
Hmm.
find a sense of belonging.
Yeah.
What does that mean for you on this path?
So I think it was just an inner job. It was just an inner job, like from my own upbringing, from my experiences. I had to just do some inner work to find validation of like, yo, this is where I belong. This is um, I think, when you look at Chinese medicine schools or people that enter like the healing arts, you always get this aspect of like the wounded healer, right? People are going in there, and a lot of people are going in there to work on their own shit. And so that was kind of something that I had to grapple with. Like, can I pass this test? Do I have the intellect? Do I have all these things? And then with being with the people that I was around and surrounded with by you and other folks, it was like, oh hell yeah, this is this makes so much sense. And I did not like the schooling system. I hated elementary school, didn't like high school, didn't necessarily like college. But then when I got to and I was like, I'm never going back to school. But then when I got to Chinese medicine school, it was like, this is easy. Like, I get this. This is like, what do you mean you don't understand? Like, for me, it just came so naturally, like so naturally. And that's because I loved it. I was interested in it. It was inspiring. There was a spiritual component to it. Even though we might not have been getting that, there was still the ability to kind of traverse through different realms and explore different topics. So yeah, so that aspect of belonging was like, it just was a matter of time. I think it was just really time and being in it and putting in the time just to build that level of confidence and assurity.
Through the years and where I sit now, looking at our field, at the
Hmm.
medicine at large, at students who are coming in who've recently graduated, just kind of like having
Yeah,
like many feet in many, only have 2 feet, but many feet in different puddles or whatever that saying, I just made it up,
yeah,
is that I see this idea of belonging everywhere in our field. What does it mean to belong? What is belonging in a field that in a medicine that has traveled thousands and thousands of miles from a culture that is not the dominant culture in the United States? And I think we're all grappling. Every practitioner in the United States who practices Chinese medicine, maybe not, maybe if you grew up with it, you come from that familial and the theory and the philosophy is what you were raised in. There may not be as much of this kind of existential questioning of belonging. But
yeah,
even for someone like me who's mixed Asian, right? I have Chinese background. I have family who practice Chinese medicine in China. I still also am always questioning like what is my place and what does this mean in the 21st century in the United States?
yeah, yeah. It's interesting, right? Because I think you're training to become a doctor. Like, I mean, we're healers, and the tools that we have are really about like inner work and cultivation and skill, like to listen to the pulse, to like the different diagnostic tools that we have are not necessarily measurable on machines per se, right? And so there's this aspect of really trusting oneself and just a different level of um faith, of trust, these virtues, faith, trust, wisdom, courage, looking in, choosing something that is not conventional, but it might be going the opposite direction that everybody else is walking, and knowing that that is what is needed, and having that trust that like that you trusting yourself to know that this is the right thing.
Yeah.
So, you don't have somebody necessarily there holding your hand. And granted, that's also in the Western medicine field. Like, of course, there's you know you could say that in the healing arts field, but there's a reason why I tell people all the time. There's a reason why they call it a practice. And so it's just more so like when we look at like Western medicine and the healing arts professions, um, it can be. I think people can get confused, or people can get. I want to speak kindly, because I don't want to like start bashing on any systems or anything like that. I have conversations with people all the time based off of kind of them being they're in the system, the Western system. So they're like, I'm on all these medications, and they want measurable results, and they're really quick to write off a Chinese medicine doctor or a doctor that's more versed in the healing arts, versus their Western medicine doctors, where they're like, I'm going to take this toxic ass drug and all these toxic pills, and I still feel like shit. And we're going to take my labs. And then you're like, well, why don't you try these herbs? Let's do this. And they don't see something work, or you say, hey, like things are probably going to get a little more exacerbated for a period of time, and then it's going to be all right. But they're like, oh, I stopped taking the herbs, and I'm just going to keep taking the toxic ass stuff and all that. And it just ultimately kills them in the end, and it's like, okay, that's your decision, like you get to, I mean, free will, you get to choose what you want to do. It's no sweat off my back. But at the same time, it's just like, look, just having that, just trying to help people find that inner knowing, listen to their heart, what feels right. So many people are often like, well, I want to do this, but they're like scared to jump in. They have one foot in, and the moment they feel a little bit of discomfort, they're like bouncing out. So yeah, now I'm just kind of rambling, but it's just really trying to help people trust themselves, find that inner knowing.
This image that you brought up is so appropriate, where everyone is swimming downstream. That's dominant culture. And here you are, me, you, our colleagues, swimming upstream, or maybe we've jumped out and we've taken a right, like we're going down a
Yeah,
different path, and it works. And
yeah,
you're in it long enough, there's nothing to prove anymore. Like I've gotten way past that. When you first get out of
yeah.
school, you
No,
feel like you're like, I want to prove, I want to prove. And then at a certain point, the medicine, you just see it work and you're like, I'm not even here to convince people. I'm swimming
nope.
down this path, and you're either going to see it's beneficial for you or not.
Yep.
And there's all these people swimming downstream. They want something different. So this idea of like swimming across the current or against the current is often what it feels like we're doing, choosing this path less taken. I call it like rebel medicine, right?
Yeah,
And at the same time, like you said, it can make a person go crazy when you hear people swimming down that stream in that current being like, I want something different. And you're like, well, then come this way. And they say, okay, but I won't. It's like, well, what do you want? It's seriously one of my biggest pet peeves, even, as a mom.
yeah.
Like when my kids were young and they have those tantrums, you're like, I want a banana. You give them a banana and then they throw a tantrum because
Right.
they have the banana. And you're like,
Yeah.
I just gave you what you wanted.
Right. Right.
Not that people are throwing tantrums, but it makes someone like me go a little stir crazy and crazy. Like, well, if you want something different, you have to do something different.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It seems
And with
obvious, but it's not.
yeah, and I yeah, and there's a time for offense, and there's a time for defense, right? Like there's a time to, like, if you think about like a river and its flow, it's not that necessarily going upstream, but it's more so understanding with rivers, the water's taking the path of least resistance, but that water's not always going in the same direction. There's moments where it is cycling back and coming up, and it's in a holding spot, and then it goes down a little further, and then it comes all the way back up. So it's just realizing and learning when to move forward and when to pause. So that's
You're
kind
so
of how I
wise.
like to look at it.
That's right, coach. Break it down to
Yeah.
offense and defense always,
Yeah.
coach.
Well, it's just knowing where you are in the
No, I love it. You're talking about the virtues, and one of the virtues that I think you really emulate but didn't say is this idea of discipline. And whether it was through school or I'm sure I didn't know you as a basketball player, but as a baller, as a basketball player at that elite level, seeing you through school, watching post school, even though our paths took very different routes, traveling all over the world in all different directions, your commitment to Qigong, there is an element of discipline that is so incredibly important when it comes to medicine, when it comes to this path of healing. It felt important to say is like discipline is also part of it. And
yeah,
maybe that's not part of the river we're all swimming in is we don't really have a lot of role models of what dedicated practice, discipline towards a craft or a art
yeah,
or a medicine looks like. And yet
yeah.
you know no other way, at least from my perspective.
I mean, there's definitely discipline for sure, and a whole lot of consistency, and just trying to make small incremental changes, like on a daily basis, a moment to moment basis. Like that's been my biggest thing. It's just I might not be able to read 6 chapters, but I can read 2 pages today, and maybe tomorrow it might be a little more. But that's been my biggest thing is just trying to show up every single day, and what are the little things that I can do that are going to go towards self-improvement, or whether it's reflection or meditation or taking a walk outside or thinking about kind of a patient case, or trying, or just looking at the symbology, within the world and how that reflects in the body. Within Chinese medicine, within we say, as above, so below. I am in the universe is within me. So if you go to the atomic level, a lot of protons, electrons, and neutrons. It looks like that in the heavens, the stars. And so, you know, I really bring a lot of symbology, imagination, and metaphor into the treatment process, and it's powerful. It's powerful.
Your patients respond well to that.
Yeah, no, I think that's what people want. I mean, or I because it's like we can look at labs, we can look at all these metrics and things of that nature, but it doesn't indicate why person still feels how they feel. I still feel depressed. I still have everything looks good on paper, but I'm constipated, or I have, some chronic disease, So we have to start getting into more story, more symbology, more metaphor, and with my training, and mostly within medical qigong training, and we went really in depth in kind of the spiritual, mental, emotional stuff, because the body's pretty straightforward. The body's relatively pretty straightforward to treat. Like I tell people all the time, it's like, oh, I got back pain, I got neck pain. It's like, all right, that's okay. We'll treat that and we can get really good results, but we also have to look at, like, well, why does this keep arising, and what's your core beliefs? What are the things that you're doing on the daily basis, and how are you, the spirit, the vessel, you inside this vessel, the thing that is illuminating this vessel, how are you engaging with the world? you know how are you experiencing it? How are you digesting it? How are you processing it? How are you letting go of that's what doesn't serve you, and separating the clear from the turbid.
You have quite the green thumb, right? So bringing
Yeah,
all this
yeah,
discipline and this phenomenology and Chinese medicine, not just into the clinic, but into your garden. I mean, that garden you have, my kids still talk about it. I mean,
yeah, yeah, yeah. So
like talk about being connected with your terrain and the ecology and seeing these principles like
yeah.
seasons and different seasons of life and patterns come to life. Speak
Yeah,
to
I
that.
tend to go down rabbit holes. So if I'm really interested in it, I'm like all in. So yeah, 4 or 5 years ago, I mean, I've always been really into gardening, into the plant world, and plants as medicine and flowers and all of that stuff. So I created a food forest, and a food forest is, the idea is that, so if you look out in nature, you go on a hike in the woods, like you have these large, the larger trees, and then you have like the bushes, and then you have the low lying shrubs and things of that nature. And then you have to look at the soil composition and that, because that's foundational in the health of a healthy environment. So so yeah, so I planted what I think there's like 20 something fruit trees and all types of currants and raspberries and you name it, rhubarb. But then you have the low laying shrubs, which are going to be like strawberries and then I have in this food forest the idea that everything in that's planted can be used as food or as a medicine.
Do you feel like that practice of having your own garden, being a service provider, providing Chinese medicine in your rural community helped you connect with that rural community in a more like tangible way? Because you didn't grow up in a rural community. From what I
No,
remember, you were more like
no,
suburbia outside of Seattle.
outside, it's just outside of Seattle, a little north of
Yeah.
downtown Seattle. Yeah,
Yeah. So maybe it's my own block, but when I think of rural community, I don't see them like necessarily jumping on the bandwagon of acupuncture and Chinese medicine. I could see
yeah,
maybe a little more like, ooh, what's that thing over there? But what's been your experience? What do you find to be a
yeah.
way to connect and bring this medicine that's affecting people's lives in such positive ways?
I think people will do what works, and a lot of people have been disenfranchised by the system. Long waiting times, going in to see your doc, and having a very small amount of time to rapid fire what you're experiencing, to not be heard, to be dismissed, to be shamed, to be given some kind of drug and told to go on your merry way. And so I think that it's been phenomenal out here. Like, I mean, the people are great. They're receptive. It doesn't matter where you go. You're always going to have people that are, you're always going to have people that, that aren't necessarily about it. You're always going to have people that are, curious, and they're like, I've been wanting to try this for years, but I haven't known who to go see. And somebody said that I should come see you. So yeah, I feel like it's been more fruitful than kind of being in the city, because in cities, people tend to stay to their like geographical area, which might be like a half a mile. Like I'm not go if I got to go farther than a half a mile, I'm not going. So out here, people travel, they see the value of good medical care. And so yeah, there's people that drive in from all over, hour, couple hours away. And then I've had the opportunity to work with people all over the country with some other just with uh more like holistic health consultations, medical qigong treatments, herbs, and then just with my medical qigong background and history, giving people specific exercises and getting into that as well. So
So you find them receptive to the qigong practices.
yeah, very much so. Yep.
That's really great to hear because I think part of me is a little doubtful that they would follow through and actually do it as homework, right?
Yeah,
So what's
I'm
what's
real.
like what's how do you present it to them to make it seem like what's their buy-in to stay motivated?
Uh, it's pretty straightforward. I feel like I do a pretty good job at bridging Western sciences and Eastern sciences, energetic sciences. I just use language that it's rooted in science and evidence. So it's imagination, visualization, intention. It's the power of the mind, right? Like what we visualize and what we hold in our mind's eye, our body doesn't know the difference. So if we visualize ourselves in Cabo and we got a Corona in the hand and we can hear the seagulls and we can feel the warm air and we can feel our feet in the sand and we can bring in all the senses, your body thinks that's really happening. And so if we take those same principles and we apply those to the healing, like our ability to heal is much greater than if we don't do anything. So they've done research on people that have had the same surgeries, and they gave one cohort of people specific visualization techniques versus the other people. And the people that did the visualization techniques healed exponentially better and quicker than the people that just laid there and let things be, you know? So I just try to bring in real world things to the conversation. And I think people really appreciate it. They appreciate the spiritual aspect of it. They appreciate like hearing about how different systems correspond with different emotional, what I call, what we deem in the Chinese medicine world is acquired emotions, right? So whether that's grief, sadness, shame, loathing, fear, anger, frustration, resentment, all those good things that we love to feel, all the great ones, overthinking, pensiveness, all that. But I just try to bring it back home, and I try to do it from an overstanding. So I'm not applying it to that person. I just give information, right? Like the root word of doctor is to educate, So like I just try to provide some kind of information, a little bit of information, and something's going to resonate with them. You know, Granted, like this is with having an idea of like who this person is and kind of being able to see what's going on and kind of helping and guiding. For the most part, things people resonate with it.
Yeah, you have a really beautiful way to, I remember this from a previous conversation, of speaking about the concept, the Chinese medicine concept of qi in your community. You don't necessarily use that term, but instead you talk about the five resonances. Can you share that with us?
So what is chi, or different forms of energy? And so we can look at these different forms of energy within the body. So you have heat through cellular respiration. You have sound. So if you think about like your heartbeat, your organs making, intestines gurgling, and all of these things, there's a vibration. There's a frequency to it all. So you have heat, you have sound, you have light, which we'll get back into. You have electricity. So if you think about like your nervous system, you have magnetism. You think about like the positive and negative charges of your cells, and that's really really important when you think about your intracellular or electro voltage. So if you think about the voltage of your body, right? That's really really important, because the less voltage you have in your body, less electrical voltage that one has, the more that they're prone to illness, chronic disease, things of that. So, and then that last one, I think I did all of them. So we did light, sound, heat, electricity, and magnetism. And light comes in two forms. So light comes in a wavelength, and light comes in a particle. And this is really big. So when we think about tonification, or adding versus reducing, or breaking up stagnation, so sound is really good at breaking shit up. So you think about the six healing sounds, you think about cancer sounds, things of that nature. Whereas when we want to fill up, when we want to like visualize colors or things of that nature coming to our body to like heal or to like cleanse, that's where light is really important, because it's almost like we can fill our body like a glass, right? Filling, water filling a glass. So yeah, these are different concepts that I speak out about with patients very much so. Yeah.
I think that's such a easy way to bridge the Chinese medicine language to concepts that people know from elementary school and middle school and high
Yeah.
school.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing. I think that'll be useful for a lot of practitioners out there who
Yeah.
have a
Yeah.
hard time just talking about qi. Let's break this down to concepts that people know and understand so they can wrap their head and hearts around.
Very much so. Yeah, because it can be such an abstract concept. I've often joked like you go to places and like, hey, dude, here's a chi ball. And it's just like, let's just dial it back a little bit. Let's make it make sense for most people. Because most people, once you do that, they're going to write you off and be like, yeah, that medicine is that deep. So I just try to bring it home and try to make it relational. Because, there's a lot of people, it might not correspond with their faith and things of that nature. And that's fine. I can find speaking points that help connect and help resonate with, help them be like, oh, this is totally safe. This is great. Like there's no threat at all. It blends beautifully. And if anything, it's going to help you connect and have a greater relationship with what it is that you want to have a relationship with. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Do you have any tips going like even more in detail on that? Because now being down here towards the south, I still get this all the time. Like that's devil medicine, or I won't do that
yeah.
because, it's against my religion. So what is one of those bridge building conversations techniques that you can think of to share?
Well, I think step one is they're in your office. So you've already
Not
got them.
usually. No, not usually. Like this is out
Okay.
in town. Like this is out in
It's out
town
in
where like
town.
a neighbor, I mean, it's all around me actually.
Is it really? Anymore, I don't even go there. I'm just like, all right, you can tell if a person's so closed off, I'm not even having that conversation. Again, when a person's ready to receive, they'll receive. And oftentimes that person will come back when like shit's hit the fan. and they're like, I've tried this. What do I do? You know? So it's like when a person's ready, you know, they'll find you. And that's kind of how I looked at it. I mean, I've countless people that are like, oh, I've been meaning to call you. And I'm like, okay, well, whenever you're ready to call, like, I'm here, like, okay.
Yeah. No, that's a very good reminder is there's a timing to all of this too. And I know that, like I conceptually know that. And yeah, I guess I was hoping that you were going to give me that like magic hook that I could just depend on. So I get it.
I'm no
I
longer,
absolutely get it.
no longer, no longer here to sell people. I'm just here to try to show up as authentic as I can. And I'm going to like share what I have, but I'm not gonna like, I just don't have the patience or the time to like have some kind of debate or some crap like that.
Yeah, it makes so much sense. I hear what you're saying. I don't try to, there's nothing to prove at this point.
And oftentimes, like people will come in, like I've had people come in the clinic, like, and it's like, I don't know about this medicine. They say this, I read this, and I'm like, okay, well, until you experience it, like that's all intellect. Like come in and I'll put a needle in you and you'll be able to feel something move. And so usually with those people, I'll really get chi moving. I'll really like be like, you're gonna feel this go from here to here. And that's when you see their eyes open up and they're like, that's
Yeah.
that's when you see and they're like, oh, okay.
Like those, I'm sure it was actually intended for studying, but I've started carrying one of those folded up point maps. So when someone says, "Oh my gosh, I just found," there was just a line right down my shin, I'll open it up and I'll be like, which one of these lines? And they'll point straight to it. And then they'll say, and that's where you put the needle. And so they have that light
Yeah,
bulb moment of, I could tell that's where you put the needle. That stomach meridian is where I felt
yeah,
that chi line go. And they have that own, oh my gosh, I felt that. And it matches what the map
yeah,
says. That's
yeah.
been a really helpful tool for them for their own kind of realization.
Cool. Yep,
Yeah.
yep. And it's fun. It's fun in the treatment process when like, like again, if we get into channel theory and like you're needling a point and you know that the energy is supposed to go a certain way, right? The chi is supposed to go a certain way, but it's going and they're like, oh, I feel it. Like, say you're doing gallbladder 34, and they're like, oh, I feel it in my hip. And it's like, all right, well, now I'm going to work it and let me know when you start feeling it go down, right? And then they're like, and it's uncomfortable. And then all of a sudden they're like, okay, it's no longer there. Now I can feel it in my foot. You're like, cool. All right, let's move on. You know? So, um, so yeah, so for me, like within this, it's trying to. We had this conversation before, and I think when I reference like going against the grain, it's doing things that are going to make that person uncomfortable a little bit, and they might not come back, and being okay with that, and just being like, all right, but this is what's needed, and you're here, so while you're here, let's get some shit done. You know?
Yeah. I'm glad you brought this up because we talk about this all the time personally is this idea of quote unquote the healing journey has a lot of discomfort in it.
Yeah,
And medicine that is effective, even holistic medicine like Chinese medicine, naturopathic medicine, these non-pharmaceutical options, there are always going to be layers of discomfort where during that healing journey, during the treatment plan, things don't feel good.
yeah, yeah. And I tell people, hey, if you're coming in for a spa session, like you're in the wrong place because
True.
you've been misled. This is no spa. This is not a spa experience. Like I'm gonna make it like there's sweet and sour, like there's a little bit of discomfort, but I'm gonna make nice at the end. And so for me, I just having a sports medicine background, like I do a lot of physical, and I think there's great value in touch. And I think that, just putting needles in for me, like for probably 80% of the patients that I see are I do some form of physical hands-on myofascial release or something else in that treatment process. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of discomfort, but like eat bitter for a minute, you're going to be all right, and then you're going to feel great. Hopefully, you might feel like shit for a day or so, but then you'll be better.
Yeah, especially in that example, eating bitter, right? Like, yes, you might have a little GI upset because you're not used to that flavor, but it's your body needing to get used to that bitter, that cold that's going to help drain the inflammation, to help
Yeah,
relieve some of that toxicity and that buildup in your
yeah,
intestinal tract.
yeah.
And then in
Yeah.
2 days, you're going to feel amazing.
Yep. Yeah. People are like, what do I do? Keep doing it. Don't stop. Do more. And it's just like, because I mean, and how do I know? Because I've done it. I've been there, like, so keep going. You'll
Yeah,
be all
and
right.
come full circle to what we were talking about, consistency. Like, there is an
Hmm.
element of consistency in medicines like Chinese medicine, with herbal medicine, with acupuncture, that, yes, it can be corrective, can really help. I don't wanna call it curative because I don't need
Yeah. Yeah.
a lawsuit on my hand, but you know what I mean.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
again, coming back to this idea of consistency in medicine, in Chinese medicine, of consistency and our daily habits and our daily choices are part of lifestyle medicine. And yet, culturally, maybe that's one of the reasons why it's so hard for some people to get on board or to experience or to move into that healing journey, because there's not a lot in our dominant culture where consistency is role modeled to us. Like, we have quick fixes, we have move from one thing to the next. It's kind of
Yeah.
this, like, how can you up level? Now you have 10-minute abs, now you have 7-minute abs, right? There's
Right.
dominant culture tells us not to be disciplined and consistent, but to find the next hack, to find the quicker. And
What's the next
so,
tonic? What's the next tonic I can take?
right.
It's
What's a
all
new
about what's the next
fad
tonic.
diet?
Yeah. What's the
Yeah.
next tonic? What's the next thing that I can take to? And I'm just like, yeah, we're going in the wrong direction. Like, we got to detox first. Like, you got to clean it. You got to clean the glass before you can drink out of it. And so, and of course, not it. This isn't, not a, one shoe fits all, but a majority.
It's a fair statement, because if we look at the medicine, right, the macrocosm, microcosm perspective here, the fractal universe we live in, world's congested right now. It's stuck. People are stuck. So of course we're feeling stuck. Like, mirror, mirror.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Yeah. Anyway, I really want to respect your time. If people want to reach out to you, I know you're not one of those people who's
Sure.
like fully on the socials as much as other
Yeah.
people, but if people want to reach out to you, where can they find you? Where can they reach out to you?
Yeah, so I have a website. It's Joshua Green, LAC.com. Last name spelled like the color. So that would be probably the best place to reach me. You can find all my information there. Yeah. And we're just scratching the surface. So there's also so much more. Like, for me, I'm really big into empowering people. So my goal is not to see you all the time. Like, my goal is to, like, just if like, I love you, but I don't want to see you all the time. And I want you to go out and be healthy and be free and be you. And so I'm really about helping people get technologies and tools in their homes that will facilitate that for their journey. So they'll be able to find information there.
Well, are you open to coming back? I know it took us almost like 2 years to get you on this first
Has
episode.
it been that long?
But
I know.
no, it hasn't been that long. It's been like a year.
It was meant to happen today.
I know, it really was. I'm so grateful. And if you're willing, I know that you and I have
Yeah.
conversations all the time off, off recording. So I really, really am
Yeah.
grateful. I know you and I, this is just scratching the surface in so many
Yeah.
ways.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll have you come back. I've been playing with this idea of
All right.
all the crazy things we see in clinic, kind of those, like,
Man.
you know what I mean? I know you have some
Yep.
good stories because we've talked about them. We'll talk about that. We got to do it in a way that protects patient privacy.
Yep.
Anyway, do you have time to do a quick rapid fire, or do you already have to go?
Sure. We
Okay.
can give it a shot.
Okay. Yeah, we'll try to make this as quick as possible.
All right. All right.
And you can pass on anything. What's the best advice you've ever received?
Best advice I've ever received. I've received so much great advice over the years. I don't think I can pinpoint one thing. Yeah. And I would say, like, with the best advice or with the worst advice, it's like I've never received terrible advice either, because I just learned from it all. So
Well, that's
there's my
great.
politician answer for you.
What book or show has your attention right now?
I would say, as far as books, I always kind of return back to, like, the I Ching and the Hua Hu Ching. So those are kind of the two books that I'm always
I don't even know about that second one. What is it? The Hua He Ching?
Hua Hu Ching. Yeah.
I'll have to look that up. Thank you.
The Unknown Teachings of Lao Tzu.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good one.
What is the most mystical thing about you that you're willing to share?
I have no idea. mystical all around. I don't know. Most mystical thing about me.
I-
That conversation is for the clinical, what we've seen in clinic. Yeah,
Yeah, that'll be for the other episode. Okay,
that's for that one.
what is one thing you thought when you started this path, Chinese medicine path, that is different now? Or practice. It could be like what have you learned from practice? One thing you thought when you started practice that's changed.
So I would have to say, like, within the educational experience, within the bureaucracy and the institution, that was kind of the biggest disappointment. But I think it's just been just being as consistent as possible and putting in the hard work. And I would say that I'm where I'm supposed to be.
What is challenging you these days?
Sheesh. What's challenging me these days? I think as we grow in our clinical skills, I think there's just more complex cases coming in, more so that those are always challenging. So, people with really chronic conditions, cancers, autoimmune disorders. So there's lot to uncover and unpack in those sessions and with those people. And so I wouldn't say that it's challenging, it's rewarding, and I'm grateful that they trust me, but it's there's challenges to it.
Yeah, for sure. Who or what inspires you these days?
Nature inspires me. I mean, just going outside and taking a deep breath in, and I'm out here, I'm right near the water, right near the Puget Sound. So I'm a 5 minute walk or 5 minute drive from the beach or a body of water, and that's inspiring and it's amazing.
Yeah, and people can't see you, but behind you is beautiful. There's
Yeah.
cedar trees and pine trees and oh
Yep.
yeah. Yeah,
Yep.
you're in it. Finish the sentence. Be the type of person who.
Be the type of person who's striving to be as authentic and integral as much as possible, being themselves in every moment.
Beautiful. And the mic drop for every episode. What is your one wish for healthcare?
One wish for healthcare. Oh my gosh, mic drop. I think just more compassion, more empathy, more sitting with people and trying to hear their stories and trying to come with more heart. I feel like it's become very sterile, and I think people only know what they know. So when they come into like our clinics and they're like, this is like a therapy session, or they're apologizing because they're like, oh, I'm sorry, that's probably just too much information. You're like, no, like this is part of the healing process, and it has relevance. Yeah, so more story, more love. Yeah,
Always more
thank
love.
you.
Always more love.
Yeah, yeah. So, well, thanks for having me. It's always great.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing your time with us. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share it with someone who would appreciate it. Your support helps create positive ripples in our communities. Do you want to continue the conversation? Do you have questions for the guest or want to explore more? Visit yinspiredpod.com, YINSPIREDPOD.com. It will take you to Substack where Yinspired lives. With your free subscription, you'll receive every new episode plus access to transcripts, show notes, resources, and the opportunity to join the discussion. From my heart to yours, create a day you love.